Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Chapter 6, Cellular Respiration. We've thrown this idea out before of cellular respiration. When you hear the word respiration, you think breathing. Let's analyze it a little bit farther. Why do you breathe? And the answer is you breathe to get oxygen. The next question then is, what does your body use that oxygen for? And the answer is we use that oxygen so that we can burn, so that we can harvest energy from the foods that we eat. The way we burn our food, the way we harvest the energy from our foods, the very last step requires oxygen to be present. That is why we breathe. During this process of harvesting energy from our food, during this process of metabolically burning our food, one of the waste products, or the waste product, is carbon dioxide. We breathe in to get oxygen. What do we breathe back out again? And the answer is we breathe out carbon dioxide. This is where that CO2, this is where that carbon dioxide comes from. It comes from this process of cellular respiration. So when we breathe, we're doing what we call gas exchange. We're exchanging oxygen for carbon dioxide. Cellular respiration is used to harvest energy from the foods that we eat. That energy, 34% of it is converted into ATP. The other 66% is converted into heat. And I think we talked about this a little bit before. Is it wasted as heat? Sometimes it is. We live in South Georgia, so often it is. But no, it's not always wasted as heat. And it's actually an advantage, actually a benefit that we convert much of that energy into heat, because that's what keeps us warm. Staying warm, normal body temperature, staying warm is what allows us to stay active when it's cold outside, and most organisms are unable to do that. When it gets cold, they basically just shut down. That's why trees drop their leaves in the wintertime. That's why you don't see snakes or bugs in the wintertime. This 66% that is wasted as heat is not wasted in mammals. It's converted into heat, but it's not wasted. When we hear the word respiration, we think breathing. Breathing, its proper name is gas exchange. We exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide. We bring oxygen into our lungs. That oxygen gets transferred to our blood and carried to our tissues. Our tissues will then carry out this process called cellular respiration, where we take food molecules that we've eaten. We use oxygen to get energy out of those food molecules. We make some water, and obviously we will use that water for our normal processes, and we make this waste product called carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is then, again, transported by the blood. Now it goes back to the lungs, and the carbon dioxide is released. Cellular respiration is related to respiration. By the oxygen that we breathe in is used to burn our food. The carbon dioxide that we breathe out is a waste product from burning our food. And remember, when I say burn, I don't literally mean burn. I mean very controlled metabolically, very controlled chemically burning our food. And just like when you burn some charcoal briquettes, you do it for a purpose. When we burn our food, we do it to get the energy out. You burn logs for a campfire to get the energy out. The energy that we're taking out of our food is not just heat. It is a lot of it is heat, but a third of it is as ATP, and it is this ATP that we're trying to make. And that's the other thing. Before we jump into this, I want you to remember, and I want you to keep in mind our goal. Our goal for this process is to get every last drop of energy out of the food molecules that we eat. That energy is going to be converted into this stuff that we call ATP. ATP is your energy currency. It's what your cells use to power everything. You use dollars to pay for everything, right? To keep your lights on, to put gas in your car, you use dollars. That's the currency. In your cells, that currency is the stuff that we call ATP. And we use the energy in the food that we eat to make this molecule called ATP that our cells then use to power the chemical reactions that they need to stay alive. Cellular respiration takes place in 3.5 steps. We're going to start with this molecule called glucose. Glucose, remember we talked about carbohydrates in chapter 3. We said that carbohydrates have that very specific ratio of 1 to 2 to 1. 1 carbon per 2 hydrogens per 1 oxygen. Because its name is glucose, you know what kind of a molecule it is. What kind of molecule is glucose? That suffix OSE means what? That suffix OSE means sugar. So glucose is specifically a sugar molecule. We're going to burn up this sugar molecule and convert it into energy. And in the case of cellular respiration, the energy is in the form of this stuff that we call ATP. All of those 6 carbons will get released as carbon dioxide. All of these 6 CO2s, every one of those 6 carbons all came from right here. Some of the oxygen came from here, some of the oxygen came from there. The hydrogens will get converted into waters by adding some of the oxygens on. But again, the whole purpose is to make this stuff called ATP. We need to talk about one more molecule before we go on. And we're going to talk about this molecule called NADH. NADH is a high-energy transfer molecule. NADH starts off life as NAD+. Plus means it has a positive charge. To turn NAD+ into NADH, I'm going to rip hydrogens off of this carbon. I'm going to rip the hydrogens off of this sugar molecule. And I'm going to rip electrons off of those hydrogens. I'm going to add 2 electrons and 1 hydrogen ion to my NAD+. If I add 1 electron, which has a negative charge, to this NAD+, the charges cancel. So now I just have NAD. If I add the last electron back to this hydrogen and add the whole beast together, I now have this thing called NADH. Where did the electrons and the hydrogens come from? They came from the sugar. Why did I do all of this? I did this because NADH is an energy transfer molecule. What does it do? It transfers energy? Yes. And the energy that it transfers is in the form of these electrons and hydrogen ions. All of the NADHs that we're about to make, and we're about to make a bunch of them, are all going to be used in the last step of cellular respiration. That last step is step 3. This shows the process of how we attach those electrons and hydrogens to my NAD+. Here's my NAD+ molecule. I rip hydrogens and their electrons. Remember, these electrons used to belong to these hydrogens. That makes it a hydrogen atom because it has that plus sign. It means it's a hydrogen ion. I rip hydrogens off of my sugar molecule. The electrons are going to get added to my NAD+. See, the electrons have been added to my NAD+. And then one of the hydrogen ions get attached to it. There it is right there. And then I've got one of these left, and here it is. And we'll talk about what happens to those and how we use those at the end when we get to step 3. But the purpose, or what I want to show you here, is that we start off with this dump truck. And we fill the dump truck. And then at the end, we're going to empty it again to get the energy out of the dirt that we put into the dump truck. The dirt being these electrons and these hydrogen ions. And we'll talk about how we're going to use it. I put up here what NADH stands for. You're not responsible for it. I just wanted to add it because everybody's like, what does NADH stand for? And I can never remember. So I wrote it up there. Nicotinamide, adenine dinucleotide plus hydrogen is what the H stands for. NAD plus, nicotinamide, adenine dinucleotide. Whatever. I don't remember what it stands for either, so don't worry about it, but that's what it stands for.